Previously on Sailing Avocet.
After months of anticipation, our Cumaru wood arrived, and that meant that we could finally finish our bulwark installation.
Now you may remember that prior to our haul out, we had removed our old teak tow rail, and we had planned to install a brand new bulwark design inspired by Lyle Hess. This new bulwark design not only added a timeless look to our boat, but also added an increased amount of structural integrity.
This was by far my favorite part of the external refit on Avocet and was the last piece of the puzzle to get us seaworthy again. These beautiful pieces of stainless steel in front of me are our bulwark bases. They are bent, they are cut, and electro-polished. Now, the one thing that didn't get done while they were at Garhauer was all of our stanchion bases, the holes on them, 3 holes, they are all different. All of them. So, I got a call saying like, hey, we could try to make it work, but like it's going to be pretty expensive. So, me being who I am, said, don't touch it, I'll take it, and I will drill them myself. So now I have those 3 punches right there, and I'm going to take it over with the drill press. So I'm going to get it lined up the best to my eye, at least. That looks pretty darn close to me. I'm going to lock the back, which I've learned when I lock it, it moves the whole base a little bit. This looks good. The reason you oil the drill bit with this stuff is that there's a lot of friction that's happening right here. And if you don't oil it, the drill bit is going to get supersonic hot, basically, and you can risk actually breaking the drill bit, which you don't want to do. Once you get this thing started, you kind of feel it start to bite, and then you increase your pressure, and putting a lot of pressure on this. And you do not want to lift off. I kind of been going until I hear it squeak a little bit, or it might go all the way through. This one feels pretty good. Yeah, it's going to go all the way through. Boom. There it is. And that's 1 hole. A lot more to go. Basically the last step in making our bulwark bases, and that is to put a little countersink onto the holes. I'm using a countersink on the drill press, and I couldn't get into, especially on some of these bases that are very these tight edges like this. See how that comes in really close like that? I couldn't actually get the drill press on these guys because it would hit this guy. So I've got it, I'm just doing by hand, and it's actually working a lot better than I was expecting. I was expecting it to not work very well, but it turned out great. So after I'm done with the countersinks, I can make sure they all fit, and that's what I'm kind of doing right now, is just dry fitting them all, making sure they actually, the bases fit on the actual holes. And then when that's done, I can go over to the boat and then drill the holes on that side, and then that's it. Bulwark can be installed.
What I'm doing right now is I'm putting butyl in between the stanchion bases and the bulwark bases. So we have a nice seal right there, and then I'm putting it also on the bottom where it's going to connect to the deck, just to prevent water from going in there and all of that. And then around the edges, once they're laid into the recessed platforms Chris put into the deck, we'll be putting a bead of Sikaflex around it just to make sure they are extremely watertight, so we will no longer have leaky decks, which is very exciting considering we used to have waterfalls inside, especially when we took the tow rail off. That was a fun time in the boatyard. Later, and we finally got our Cumaru wood, which is going to be used to build our new beautiful bulwark. We took off our teak tow rail. We knew we wanted to replace it with a hardwood that was equally as beautiful as well as water resistant and hard. However, teak was not viable since it's really expensive and hard to come by. Cumaru happens to be known as the Brazilian teak, which is really cool. We're excited to have it and can't wait to get it on the boat.
Alright, so the math behind these bulwarks. The boat itself has about 42 feet of length from the stem all the way around the side of the boat and then ending up on the stern. So it's about 42, I think, 0.5 feet. And the pieces of wood that we got, the Cumaru, are in 20 feet sections. You might think, well, Chris, just throw them together, two of them together would be 40 feet and you're almost there. Well, it's a little different because we are not doing butt joints, we're going to be doing scarf joints. And the scarf joint that I have made here is about 32 inches long. So you have to subtract 64 inches from the 40-foot long piece that you will have, which means that two 20-foot sections is really only getting us to 37 feet. And then we need a little bit more, obviously, because we need it to be about 42 feet. I've made them 43 feet just to be safe. So we're adding another, this is a 6.5 inch board on the end of it. So that's a little bit of the math behind that. The way that I made this a little bit more simple on myself is that on the 20-foot section in the middle, I made that basically the jig or the template for each side. So on that piece, I cut both scarves on both sides. The beauty behind doing it that way is that I'm able to put the other two pieces around it and clamp them together and then just draw it out as though it was a template. So that's what I've already done on this piece. This is the 6.5 foot piece going on the aft side. I just drew it out on this piece right here. And even though, like I said, I don't have to be super critical with my measurements because I'm just matching this board to that board, I am still gonna just make sure that the measurements are at least close. That way we don't mess it up. So the next thing we wanna do is taking into account the blade thickness when we make our cut. The way I made this line is I laid down the other piece that I had already cut and I just scribed along this line. So I know that if I were to cut on this side right here, if I were to cut on this side of that line, these two pieces are going to meet up very nicely. I do not want to cut on this side because if I do that, it will not be taking into account the blade thickness, and therefore the whole thing will be a little bit too low, about 2 millimeters too low. caught me on the last bulwark base. I've made my process go basically from the inside, meaning the middle piece, out. And I did that because if I were to start on a piece like this, and then by the time I would get up to the middle piece, I was worried that as I would clamp them down, it would actually bow out in the middle, and then therefore I wouldn't be able to get it in. So started from the middle, that way it's kind of like laying down a piece of paper. It went down nice and flat. So this is the last one. I just put in these hawse holes right here, and it's getting late, but we are just trying to go sailing tomorrow. This is that last step before we can get out there and have some fun. The keen observer will notice that our bulwark bases are proud. That was a mess up on my part. When I ordered this material online, it said 6 inches wide, and I had assumed that it'd be 6 inches wide, not 5.5. So we got a solid 1/2 inch gap on the top. I'm installing them right now, basically so we can use the boat a little bit, see if this is really gonna bug us, because now that the bulwark bases are all installed, bedded into place, it's gonna be really difficult to get them cut on the boat. Not only will it be difficult, it'll be very messy. So if it doesn't bug us too badly, well, we're just gonna leave it.